Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. As always, I'm Edward, and you are you. Welcome, and thank you for taking a little time out of your life to give me a listen. And this week, I was really kind of, honestly, I was struggling to find a topic to talk about, and then it sort of clicked in my mind. Over on Google, over the last month, one of the biggest terms that is getting searched in the BDSM related world is CNC. It's been trending for at least 30 days, and most of the time it is number one or number two in what people are searching for. So I think it'd be an ideal topic for us to talk about, since it is, it is a trending topic there. Even managed to be trending above all the unique headlines that came out in the last little bit that kind of related to the world of kink. But, anyways, CNC is really, it just stands for consensual non consent. And there was a comment made to a post somewhere about CNC, and someone had said, well, it's a framework like safe, sane, consensual (SSC) or RAC (risk-aware consensual kink). And no, those are the frameworks that you would say negotiate any sort of consensual, non-consensual play or scenes through. I even saw one scary comment, which made me go yikes. But on second thought, I'll explain it. But the comment was, "This is how I push my subs' limits," which made me immediately go yikes. But if they're doing it properly, they're consensually doing it, then that works for them. Although online it did, that's where my initial yikes came from, is because it was online and a lot of people misunderstand it. So hopefully we'll clear that up today and you'll exit the podcast with a little bit better understanding of what CNC is. And first of all, I mean, the first most important thing in it is the first word, consensual, which means everything that happens is consented to. It is not something that is non consensual. It is consensually agreed to before it happens that this is going to happen. So the consent part is the foundation and it's not an afterthought. And it really, CNC is on a spectrum. It can be very mild, or it can be very elaborate and scripted. Uh, Either way, you are sort of engaging in a consensual role play throughout CNC. Now, what makes people, be drawn to exploring CNC play? Well, there are some research out there. Led Miller is probably the biggest researcher, and his data, if you can believe it or not, shows that more than half the U.S. adult population has fantasies about being forced to do things. Now, his research was purely sexual, not looking at it from the lens of say BDSM or kink, but really CNC play would sort of fall into that if the bedroom foxtrot was on the agenda for part of the CNC play. And so, just so everyone knows, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to you know, do a tango in the bedroom or whatever else room you tango in with your partner or partners. It doesn't have to be a part of it. But in Led Miller's research, over half the population, regardless of gender, have fantasies about non-consensual things, having to do them or doing them to somebody. So there's, of course, the taboo to it, which makes it attractive to some people. For other people, it's cathartic. Other people get an adrenaline rush from it. And also, I mean, there's sort of, depending on what you engage in, sort of some theatrical elements, building a scenario, that can carry some real emotional weight, that are all contributing to what makes it, so attractive to so many people. The big part about CNC is that negotiation happens. Everything that happens in a CNC scene is discussed and agreed on before it happens. So if you see sort of a CNC scene play out on OnlyFans or wherever you surf the net to get your adult content, you normally don't see the pre-scene things where everything is being negotiated, agreed upon, what's in bounds, what will stop a scene, and what the scene is going to look like when or if it actually happens. So a lot of people's fascination for CNC comes from viewing or reading experiences that they have, um, that don't show the negotiation part. They just see the fun and exciting of it. And one of the biggest sort of safety mechanics, if you will, I guess if CNC were a car and we were having to fix it, is that it requires deliberate signals. Because oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, things that we normally would think of as signals to discontinue a scene, like the word no or stop, may actually be part of what's going on. And when typically the submissive would say no or would say stop during CNC, that's part of the role play. That is actually not meaning no or it's not meaning stop. It's as actually part of the negotiated plan or the negotiated scene. So it's very important to understand the safe word coding that is going on, whether you use unique to you safe words or you do the traffic light system, green, yellow, and red, and do all that. And it's also important because some scenes can potentially limit one's voice to have clear gestures that can be used to immediately stop a scene or give a warning that, hey, we're close to caution, or even, we're good. This is great. This is what I want, included in it. And everyone needs to know exactly what those are before anything happens. It is an absolute must. You can't go in with any of the safety side of it lacking or sort of gray, no matter how many shades, whether it's 50 or 5 million, there can't be any gray areas. Now, some common misunderstandings about CNC is there are people who sort of hear about it, or maybe they see a video online or read about it in a book, is they think there's actual an absence of consent. And what is happening during that playtime, the consent has come prior to it. It also appears to many people is that it's spontaneous or it's improvised. Yes, improv can happen during a playtime, but most of it is not really improvised. It's well planned, and it is definitely not something that is spontaneous because of all the groundwork that was done before it happens. And also, you know, there are people who use CNC play, unfortunately, um, as a sort of cover to be able to push past agreed upon limits and then framing those consent violations as being, oh, well, that was just part of the scene. That's part of what we did. It was non-consensual. I didn't have to follow your limits. Yeah, you do. You have to stay within the agreed upon limits. That doesn't change just because you're doing a CNC scene. Um, and oftentimes we think of CNC happening in private, which a lot of times it does, but it does sometimes happen at, supervised events in local spaces with experienced people present and sort of safety structures in place where everybody who's sort of the dungeon monitor, the chief safety officer, or whatever you want to call it, or observers are all aware of what's going to happen, aware of the safe words, and the people who are in charge are trusted by everyone who is involved. So it's not something that happens in private. And if you are going to explore this in private, please, just my own advice here, please do so with somebody that you trust completely, because trust is very key when you're doing this in private. Because, well, you aren't in a space where there's a dungeon monitor that will hear you say your safe word and make sure the other person stops. You have to trust that the other person will stop when that happens. And because CNC is intense, typically, um, aftercare is a must for everyone involved, whether they're dominant or submissive. It's normally very intense. And so, aftercare for most of us is something that is needed. You need to sort of plan for this in advance. This is one of those areas where drop can easily occur afterwards because of the intensity, because of all the chemicals that will get released in those who take part in their brains afterwards. Drop is definitely something to be aware of that can happen after a scene. So it's very important that aftercare is part of it. Now, I understand and accept also that there are some people out there who, for many reasons, aftercare is something that is not their preference. Maybe it's their, their neurology or just how they're sort of shaped as people. And if that's the case, that also needs to be communicated up front, because for some people it can be very shocking if they're expecting aftercare and it's not there. So it's definitely a conversation to have. But CNC is not, it's not something that is bad or wrong. It is something that I would kind of caution people who are newer to the lifestyle to maybe build a foundation and some experience before they go into it, because it is often very intense. And if you choose unwisely with who you participate in a CNC scene with, it can be dangerous, not just for the submissive side, but for the dominant as well, because there are some real risks that come through with it. So that's sort of a brief look at what CNC is. And I want to now kind of share a personal experience with you about CNC and how it worked in a past relationship of mine. It was something that we came up with, and I've seen other people online with very similar types of things, and it worked really well for us. Now, it may not work for you, but I just want to share what has worked for me. The submissive, she and I sat down and we had a conversation about bringing the CNC fantasy that she had to life. And we went through all the negotiations, what was on the menu, what was off the menu, what could happen, what couldn't happen, right down to where it had to happen for safety concerns and our own privacy and everything like that. So it was all very negotiated and in essence very scripted. It was something that was it was in a sense a script. This is going to happen, then this is going to happen, this will happen, or maybe point B gets dropped, but you have an idea of what A, B, and C and D are all going to be that are going to happen potentially during this, and what absolutely cannot happen, what methods, what safe words we're going to use, what gestures will be used, which were the same ones that were used, that were our sort of set safety parameters and safe words and gestures. So there wasn't anything new to learn or to practice there. And the method we came up, because obviously CNC sort of has that mental edge for many people. Why, yes, it can be something that gets very planned that, Saturday at 8 p.m., we're going to do this scene and it's going to be this. And because our lives are busy, so sometimes it does require, explicit planning to make it happen. But in this case, what we came up with, um, whenever we were going to do it is she was her family was Irish, so even if it wasn't St. Patrick's Day, she could get away with wearing a shamrock pin on whatever she was wearing. And that shamrock pin was my signal that she was open to CNC play, whether it was, this scenario we had negotiated or maybe another scenario we had negotiated. That was that was left up to me to control and to lead. But the pin was her way of saying, yes, I want this to happen if you want it to happen, today or tonight. And the beautiful thing about a pin like that, and it happened a couple of times and it was no big deal, where, we'd get together and she'd have the pin on and we go to dinner and something would change or her mood would change. And so, the pin would be taken off, which was my signal saying, okay, you know, her mood has changed, her wants have changed. This is now off the menu for this evening. So it was a subtle signal that, yes, please, if you're in the mood. And as a dominant, I know the thing that I enjoyed, which maybe may sound selfish, but I enjoyed the mind games that went with it. It didn't mean I had to do it because she was wearing the pen, but I could sort of start setting the stage or make it appear like we were going to go down the road into the CNC scene that we had negotiated and then completely, change the plan. Uh, can't remember what the movie was we saw one night, but I sort of throughout dinner dropped little hints, subtle little things that made it sound like this was going to happen. And yeah, and when then we went to see a Pixar movie. It was Pixar, maybe it was Cars. But it totally I guess the best way I could put it is mindfuck that went with it was a whole lot of fun for me to do, just out of that because she's thinking we're going to this place and I know we're not, but I'm going to, sort of lead us down that road where she thinks it's going to happen. So that made it fun. It was one of the things that made it fun for me. But with having that little signal, whether it's a stick pin or a bracelet, or even explicit conversation. Hey, I'm in the mood to do it tonight. Fantastic. We'll see what happens. Or, changing that and saying, hey, I know I said earlier I was in the mood. Ah, sorry that changed. That's fine. So it's something that just you can, whether it's a piece of clothing, a pin, whatever works for you, you can sort of use it to show, your interest or not interest in it. And, it worked out really well for us. And I've actually seen on Etsy where they sort of make some jewelry which is very vanilla appearing, but yet very clear to signal, sort of like a green or a red bracelet that can be flipped over. So, if the green side's out, green means go. And if it's red, it means no go. And with that, there's no yellow, there's no maybe. It's either yes or no. Because CNC is one of those things where maybe is not a good answer. If it's maybe tonight, ask me later, that's fine. But when it comes right down to whether you're willing to do it or not, it's sort of go or no go. So it's just neat. So if you're looking for something, I know that head over to Etsy and they will have some very unique pieces of jewelry that you can wear anywhere. Wear it to the family reunion. No one will know except whoever you choose to share that with. So that is a great little idea if that is something that is of interest to you. And with that, actually, I'm going to wrap up. I know it's a bit shorter of a pod than perhaps normal, but this was what was on my mind. I wanted to get it out, and I do have a favor to ask. If you've made it here to the end, drop a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on CNC and if it's something that you enjoy or are curious about it. Um, what are some things that you would either give advice to people who are looking to explore it, or if you're new, maybe ask a question or two to see what people have to say back. So let's have a little conversation about about CNC play, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and I look forward to chatting with you again in just 2 weeks. Have a wonderful, great day.